Welcome back to Close Encounters of the Tech Kind. I'm John, coming to you from a remote location again. In the sunlight, I've got my sun visor down, but I still have to put on sunglasses because it's a bright, sunshiny day out there. Got a fantastic conversation for us today. We're going to dive into the iPhone 17. Some of the features are, about the same, and some are actually pretty interesting. We're going to talk about signal backups. It's a new feature rolling out. They got a free version and a paid for version. Microsoft has responded about the solid state drive failures. And then if we got time at the end, I want to banter about anonymity versus privacy. You'd think one is the other, but I don't think that's the case. Anyways, today with me, I've got Mike.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Mike's got about, a few years of experience doing this stuff.
Yep, just a bit.
Jackson,
How's it going?
little, little less than a few years of experience. Maybe just a few years.
Like just a few. Just a few is a good way to put it.
And then helping us keep the train on the tracks or the airplane in the air, we've got Artie, our flight engineer, making sure that we get everything recorded and captured and brought to you, our listeners.
They put their trust in the wrong person.
You didn't say that last time. You
Things
gotta
change.
warn me next time. That's fair. Well, let's jump into this. iPhone 17. It's a little thinner, a little lighter, but I saw some tech things on it that are pretty interesting. You know, the number one way hackers are able to get through and get credentials out of the phone? Let's say iPhone 16 and previous. Memory leaks. I shouldn't say that's the number one way. It's a popular way because you can break the memory, you can do row hammer, you can do all those crazy little spoofing technical things on the inside. I mean, I can name it. I just don't want to bore everybody with technical details on exactly what it is. Please look it up. Join the comments. But my point is the iPhone 17 has a stronger, more robust, rebuilt memory infrastructure. So from the processor to the RAM, you can't hack the other paged areas of memory. You will not have access from the process that you're running.
Hmm.
Jackson, you've heard about Pegasus, right?
Pegasus? No.
That's the no-click, zero-day exploit tool that the NSO group put together. It's one of the big ones of, NSO was the Israeli group, and their effort was to get, sell to nation states $20 million. You can use this tool to go after dissidents or whomever you want. And the number one counter argument that pretty much everybody is saying, they're de-anonymizing the wrong dissidents. They're going after politicians. They're going after uh, reporters. They're going after people that, like whistleblowers. That seems to be a problem. I guess we're jumping into the privacy versus anonymity conversation a little bit. But wanted to get your thoughts on this. Like, we've had a lot of hacks get into the hardware architecture and kind of prey on some of the designs of yesteryear. And this new version of the iPhone is giving us a better architecture. Is this a good thing, a bad thing?
Well, it's definitely a
Do we have
good
some
it's
pitfalls?
definitely a good thing. I don't know exactly what it means. I mean, from what I saw, it looks like it is meant to be fully compatible with Swift, which is, Apple's language that they have been um which I think Swift is meant to be memory saved as a language in and of itself. But then you can't go wrong with implementing stuff down at the hardware and firmware level. That's where you can really get some serious controls. But I think it's the same thing that we've seen with Rust, right? Um, or if am I saying that right? It's Rust, right? The new programming language that's meant to be C but memory saved. Yes, okay. Okay, I'm seeing some nods. Um, Rust was and is um trying to make itself into the new default, and it's slowly kind of creeping up. I've seen a few studies and a few surveys around of what people are using, but C and C++ are still the core of all development. And the reason that Rust isn't is because you have to kind of jump through so many hoops to get your code to even compile and run. And I mean, I haven't coded anything in Rust, but from what I hear from other programmers is that it just makes coding such a pain. So it's going back to this development from Apple, right? It's good that we're coming at it from both sides, right? Rust is in development; they're working on it. They're trying to make it so it's easier for you to use, but also still completely memory safe. And so then when we see companies like Apple also working on the hardware side, it's a huge development.
Well, that's kind of the number one issue of new technology is you have to maintain compatibility with everything you had before.
So my question is, there are some use cases where so just in a nutshell, we're saying that basically this means that a given application running on the phone cannot access the memory block used by a different application, correct?
Correct. At
Okay.
the hardware level, it's not a software pool.
At the hardware level. Does that mean then that what happens when we have other threats, such as, like you mentioned at the start of this, that one way to gain somebody's credentials per se would be to access it through a memory leak. But what if it's an application that for somehow, some way was authenticated into the Apple Store, someone downloads it, and it's actually stealing credentials and sending it to a home base? That would be something that we would want to scan for. So people who write software, anti-malware software to combat against these things, is there going to be a way that they can scan for that? Because it seems to me that if you are limiting that, you're limiting any other program's ability to scan and monitor and verify that nothing malicious is going on. So what's your
Well, I
response
mean,
to
What say you?
Jackson? Jackson, go for it.
Oh
Take it
no,
away.
Mike, you bring up a very good point, and I think that's something that I mean, at least me, I'd have to be an architecture engineer to really give you a good response on that, and I'm not, and I don't know exactly where those permissions lie. And yeah, I think you're asking the right questions, and it's those questions that are going to be answered by an increasingly smaller group of people.
The reason I say that is that one thing I've taken comfort
Not
in
me.
is that right now, the way I use a computer is that I have the ability to grab resources from just about anywhere. If I decide I want to use a particular antivirus, I've got choices, right? There's lots of different products to choose from out there. The thing that I've seen some of the operating system and the major vendors like Microsoft or Apple is that they want to say, like, look, we take care of that for you. You don't need to go get some third-party application. But I don't know that I trust them either. You know, like, well, and we've seen that there's in the past, like, Microsoft ends up with an exploit or Apple ends up with an exploit that hackers take advantage of. And so it's like, why why can't I enjoy the checks and balances of having multiple resources, therefore multiple layers of security? I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I think it's great to keep the data on the device protected and secure. Obviously, I don't want other applications getting into my banking app or whatever to find out information about me. But is it going to come at a cost? Or is it going to make it so that some of these other anti-malware vendors are going to have to jump through extra hoops to get, maybe they get certified, maybe they get a special, I don't know, runtime library or something that they have to include with their apps so that it has that access that it needs. I don't know what the answer is. Like you said, I'm not an architect either. I don't know exactly how this works, but it just raises concerns that the vendors are locking things down to where it becomes more of a monopoly, that I can only look to them for the answer to protect me. And I don't know if I like that.
It's an interesting juxtaposition because if it's open source, everybody can look at it. And just those very tricky few can find a potential 0-day and run it. Whereas if it's obscure, if nobody has access to closed source, Apple is absolutely closed source, then only those in the inner sanctum can actually do anything about it. Like, let's look at Novell back in the day. They wouldn't tell you what was in the package. They just say, "Here's an update. You have to run it, or everything's going to break." You're like, "Well, what does it fix?" And I'm like, "No, no, no. It will break. Just install it. Trust us. We're not telling you anything about it." And then things work completely different after you install the patch. So, you just got to trust them, right? So the novel approach that I'm seeing on this is it's the first time I've seen a vendor, a large tier 1 vendor, change their physical hardware to solve some problems that have existed in computer architecture since the beginning. Like x86 is extremely vulnerable architecture.
Well, I don't know that it was vulnerable. It was only vulnerable once we started getting into the idea of multitasking. That I
Oh,
think
no,
back,
you could hack past it way before then.
and yeah, I mean, but you got to remember the mentality back when computers first came out is that you ran one program at a time. The idea that you would have something else running in the background wasn't actually really thought of initially with computers. It's like, what do I need to do? I need to calculate trajectory to the moon. I'm going to sit down at the computer and calculate trajectory to the moon. You're not doing anything else. Nowadays, we work in a world where you've got anywhere from 2 to 10 to 15 apps open on your device at once. Um, Communications running in the background, maybe a music player running in the background. I mean, just all kinds of things all running in the background doing who knows what. You hope that they're doing what they're supposed to, but as we've seen, that there are certain apps that maybe they're infected with malware that they're doing other things too, like capturing your information. And so, yeah, now we have to move towards architecture and software design that protects the memory and isolates one from the other.
There was a hack that came out. It had some glorious name. I forget it. It would use the prefetch function. So like the wasted compute cycles in a CPU.
Mhm.
If you're, I'll use a video game analogy, and this is absolutely wrong. This is not how it works, but it's like this. If you go down a hallway, you encounter enemies or challenges or what have you. The computer is actually processing the alternate paths and what would happen if those were encountered. What that does is it speeds up your user experience because instead of processing your experience, it's processed 20 experiences and gives you the one that you just chose, called prefetch.
Mhm.
I forget the vulnerability
Intel,
where they
yeah, it was
run
like
the prefetch and they find those alternate paths and actually execute those to gain access to credentials.
Right. I've read about that before, about manipulating that and using it to their advantage.
Yeah, that was a huge Intel
Hmm.
issue, wasn't it? I think that was about a year or so ago.
Yeah, just a couple years
And
ago.
it was both Intel and AMD. Both of them had that. Intel was way worse, but um, it was first discovered on Intel. But it's one of those that handicap prefetch so that we can't use a faster computer experience anymore because hackers can use these tools, and it's at a hardware level. There's nothing we can do software-wise to mitigate it. So I'm actually excited to see where this is gonna go. We're starting to look at the hardware. Is it something that needs to change? Is it going to change? So I'm all for this as long as we don't lose backward compatibility too far. That's where Apple has a distinct advantage with a closed architecture and closed ecosystem. They can make a change and they can obsolete technology that's however many years they decide old, be it 2 years or 7 years or whatever,
Right.
which now I'm feeling like the corporate apologist for, planned obsolescence. That's just
Hmm.
but this feels
Well,
like
yeah, when
planned
you
obsolescence with an eye towards fixing problems instead of creating more.
yeah. Yeah, when you look at it with that viewpoint, it seems like, yeah, a great thing. Like, yeah. I mean, just like we retire a lot of networking devices over time, they just it's their end of life. They don't have the right hardware or whatever it may be, capabilities to keep up with the technology of the time. And so if this is where we're moving, I think I'm happy about it.
Yeah, we will see. But I hear you loud and clear, Mike, on the whole open source, closed source. Here's a closed sourced one for you. Signal. It's the gold standard for encrypted communication.
Really.
It's closed source. So Signal's rolling out a new feature. They've hired a couple like heavy hitters in the encryption industry. Um, they're rolling out backups. And instead of doing local backups that you control, they're doing backups on their own cloud server that they have physical control of.
Backups of what exactly?
So if you're on the free tier, it backs up something like 90 days of communication, the first 5 megs of media that's gone across or so. I don't have the specifics. I'm pretty sure it's going to change before it hits market. If you're paying for it, they're going to back up the whole thing. I'm on the fence on this.
On their cloud. So the server, it's a server side backup.
Hmm.
So this would be like, I suppose the way that I'm doing it now would be that if I have the Signal app on my phone, I could activate some type of a backup feature that keeps a backup on my phone of like messages, media, et cetera, right? I mean, don't some don't some messaging apps, aren't they kind of already like that? I mean, like if I use Facebook Messenger, for example, when I log into my account, no matter what device I'm on, I've got access instantly to every Facebook Messenger message thread that I've ever had that hasn't been deleted, you know. So I think to some extent there's some services that already back up the cloud, right?
Hmm.
So what's the significance of this over
I think it depends on who their
before?
market is, right? I'm
Yeah.
not familiar with Signal, but I mean, where is it used and who uses it?
Ooh.
And if
Oh,
we're
I have
talking
failed you, Jackson.
and if we're talking
I have.
about encryption, are we talking about, so it's going to be an encrypted backup, obviously. I mean, how's that going to work with yeah, why don't you like answer Jackson's question first, because then I might have some other questions after that.
So Signal is let's go back in time. WhatsApp. You're familiar with WhatsApp.
Mhm.
Yep.
So that's point to point and end to end. I send a message to you, it's encrypted. And it just recently rolled in as it's encrypted on my device before it leaves my device to transmit over to you. And because of our partnership, our handshake, it's encrypted in transit and then lands in your system. You can see it. Uh, the founder of WhatsApp, after he got his multi-billion-dollar payout from Facebook, he started Signal with the idea of Signal is going to be what WhatsApp should have been. It's an end-to-end encrypted system that gives all of us total security of our data, and it's pretty strong. Like I say, it's the gold standard. Everybody goes to it and says, "This is the one you can't hack through." Nation states can hack through it, but they have to know you, they have to have access to your phone, they have to all the stars have to align just right for them to actually get into your message. So, the significance here is it's end-to-end encrypted. So data at rest is encrypted on your phone. Data that you're using is decrypted to display to you, and data in motion as it's transferring across the internet, that's encrypted all the way. The change here is the servers are going to back up a copy of your encrypted files and bring it into the cloud. So you don't have a local backup, at least not in the current offering that they've got right now. You get a local backup, you've got control. If it's in cloud, now all your messages are going up to the cloud, which is antithetical to what Signal has been up to this point, which is data is in the user's hands, is completely encrypted, and nobody in between can hack into it. Like you have to really try to hack into somebody that's got cell phone text messages. Like if I'm sending you, Jackson, a message, somebody has to sit in the middle the entire time and capture 100% of that data. Well, now we're moving the target to a single cloud server. I don't
Because
know if I like that.
once they get access to that, then they have that data, they can download a copy of it, then they have it indefinitely to hack away at it. The other thing is that, okay, if it's stored on the server encrypted, like here's an example. I lose my device and I get a new device to replace it, and I want to then retrieve the backup. How does it where basically for encryption to work, you got to have encryption keys. Where are the keys stored? Because if the keys were stored on my previous device, I obviously don't have the keys anymore. If the keys are stored with my account, then if my account gets hacked, then it doesn't matter if my data is encrypted or not.
There's a 64-digit code that is your recovery. So if you do
Right.
lose your device, you can recover it.
If I
It's actually
have
one of the number one issues with Signal is if you lose your phone, let's say it rolls
right.
down an escalator or takes a swim with you accidentally, it falls in the hot tub. Whatever happens to that phone, it's gone, and all the messages are gone. There's no chance of recovery.
Okay, but I have to have that basically that 64-digit key to unlock the encryption.
But as of right now, those messages exist only on my phone and only on Jackson's phone.
Right. But now if I manage to hack and get a copy of what's on the cloud, then I could go fishing for the 64-digit code. Like, I don't know, like I agree with the idea that I liked it in my control, in my possession, not on somebody else's computer, you know? Because
I just want local backup.
yeah. Are you saying that they'll take away the local backup option too if they
There is no
move to
local
this?
backup.
No local backup. Hmm.
Like if I went from an iPhone 16 to an iPhone 17, I can do that, but I can't take my messages with me.
Hmm.
Well, I wonder
Now,
why
If somebody's done this in the that's listening to this conversation, put it in the comments below, because I would love to know how to do that, because I've lost some awesome conversations I've had over the years.
Well, I wonder if, like, say if we have a conversation between me and you, John, right? Say you lose your phone, but I still have mine. I still have all those messages on my phone. Uh, does Signal not allow for your phone to query mine for the message history?
It's been a minute since I've done it. Last time, when I had to get a new phone, I lost all my history. Never mind that I was connecting to somebody previous.
Hmm.
Now, it may have
Because
been that I had to recover. I'm thinking back here. It may have been that I had to recover my account. And because I was recovering with a different encryption key, I didn't have the token to the original conversation. So it's potentially treating it like a new conversation. I don't remember.
Hmm.
And that's actually my fault for not being educated on this.
Yeah, because I know I'm not sure how Signal, do they have an account or what is it tied to? Just that device? Or is it tied to an
Phone number.
account or phone number? So I
Oh,
mean,
no,
what?
no, it's on the device, and your encryption is tied to that device, and it requires a phone number to start, sign up.
Okay, so that you can't do essentially SIM jacking
Correct.
because the encryption is tied to the device and the SIM is just there to say, okay, go.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
it's impervious to interception. And that's the reason Signal has been so cool this far, but if we look back to the LastPass hack, they downloaded the vault, terabytes worth of everybody's personal data that's locked in their keyloggers. We're already watching that thing get picked apart by some heavy hitter GPUs. Signal could be a righteous hack.
Yeah, you only got to get lucky.
So if you're using Signal, Jackson, you're not using Signal. If you're using Signal, turn off backups.
Hmm. Yeah, that's because you think about messaging, the history of like just sending a message to somebody, back in the days of carrier pigeon, I wrote the message on a piece of paper. I tied the piece of paper to the pigeon, sent the pigeon off. The message physically left me and went to the other person and no in between. It wasn't like it was saved somewhere or copied down somewhere. It was carried with the pigeon to the other person. The other person read it. The other person had the message. He'd send a response back, and then I would have that response. It's the same, sending a letter in the postal system. Put in an envelope, send it off. The only person that has the copy is whoever physically has it at that time, unless somebody actually chooses to make a copy before or after it gets sent. And so the whole idea of the way computers work is yes, we have to somehow kind of make a copy anyway, because it's got to be sent to a server, and we trust the fact that, once I turn my device off, it gets erased out of the memory. And the only thing that exists is the data that was actually sent out. But to see that something intercepts it, saves it, records it, and then passes it on to the intended recipient, which is like what an email server does, it's kind of like you got to like wrap your head around that and think like every message I've ever wrote, if somebody were to hack into the server that's storing all that, is that something I would want? Or am I going to be embarrassed, or am I going to be am I breaking a confidentiality? So that was kind of the questions I was getting into, is like, what's going to happen with people who are using this as a means of achieving some sort of, we've got medical industry, we've got HIPAA, we've got, lawyer, client, doctor, patient, all these different confidentialities and everything that we have. Does Signal achieve those levels of standards right now?
Yes.
And What happens to a company like that, though, when, like, so you say LastPass gets hacked? Signal, let's say, just for example, they're going to get hacked and a server is going to get downloaded and into the black market, big data store or something. Obviously, they're going to have to put out a notice that says it's possible your data has been compromised and everything, but at that point, it's like you're saying, now people have a copy that they can just start hammering on and working on to say, let's try to crack this thing open, you know,
And
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 that,
it gets to the point where it's like, well, maybe that encryption is good, and we're not too worried that even if someone does get their hands on it, that they're going to be able to crack it. Well, I mean, what about in 5, 10 years, or who knows how long it's going to take till we have, um, we've outgrown our current encryption.
With AI, 10 minutes.
or
Yeah.
quantum computing for that matter.
And I got a correction, guys. Signal is open source. So I was thinking about it. The U.S. government got in trouble for using a fork of the Signal app, which they've been expressly told you can't use Signal for operational security. So
So there
but
you go.
are we using the open source version on the App Store? Or is the one that's in the App Store slightly modified? Don't know. App Store's closed source.
Hmm.
So it's interesting conversation. The advantage of having a private connection between you and your doctor. Let's make sure that that's there, right? Nobody needs to know my doctor's notes on me or my therapist's notes on me or, my kids at school. They don't need to know any of those conversations I'm having with grades
Mhm.
or classroom performance or any of that. There's no reason for that to be public knowledge.
Right.
No reason for it to be available, period. So privacy versus anonymity, that might be a thing. Let's definitely talk about that in a second. But before we talk about that, I'm kind of feeling like we're done with this subject, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Any any final thoughts, Artie?
No.
Cool. We have talked the room done. So a couple podcasts ago, we were talking about solid state drives and a Windows update, very specific, causing a failure when you copy large amounts of data. Some follow-up to that. Apparently, they were doing it, the tests on devices that had beta firmwares, not mainstream release yet.
Who is doing
I
the
can't
test?
the YouTubers, the people that were experiencing these issues had firmware that wasn't mainstream, it was cutting edge. Now, I don't know what that
Mm.
means, but this is the news story that got released this week, is maybe, just maybe, these YouTubers that were reporting on this had a copy of firmware on their SSDs or the chipset controller or something that was out of band, out of the mainstream. So Microsoft couldn't test and validate against that. Don't know if that's true, but that would explain why Microsoft was saying, we can't reproduce this issue.
So I mean, who's then to blame for it? Nobody.
Everybody.
Um,
Let's blame everybody.
well, really, I mean, anytime I have seen cutting edge beta, whatever you want to call it, firmware, or even just on software in general, it always comes with a disclaimer. This hasn't been fully tested. It's still in development. Use at your own risk. we're not liable for this and this and this to happen. And it may be true that you could install said firmware, software, whatever you have, and your experience on your system may be flawless. And it's something else that causes the thing to break, like a Microsoft update or an operating system update of any kind, really. I mean, when you put it that way, it's just as likely that this could have happened on a Linux update or an Apple update, you know, because they're not anticipating you. Like if we're using the stable version of the operating system and we do the regular updates for the stable channel, then they're not going to be expecting you to run untested, unsupported firmwares, softwares, what have you, on the system. That's not what they've tested against. So I think it's really just, it could come down to the users. It's going to be their fault for running non-standard firmware.
Jackson, you look like you need another couple hours of sleep.
Sorry. All this
No,
firmware
you're
hardware
good.
talk.
Yeah.
Just starting to sound like my professors.
I was wondering. I was like, we're getting into some nitty gritty here, and curious if there's any echoes of your class experience with this beta versus mainstream.
Well, let's see. In the class that I'm right now, we're talking a lot about embedded programming, right? And so that's dealing more with microcontrollers or just embedded systems in general, right? And we do talk a lot about um, making sure that what you're writing, you never want to break something that you've already written, right? And so when you're going through new code or new state machines or whatever it may be, the goal is to create something that's bulletproof by itself, slowly introduce it into the new system, test it, run some edge cases. You're not going to be able to test for everything because, I mean, there's just no bandwidth for that. But you do your best. And so I think um, what Mike was saying, right, is they give you that disclaimer. If you're a software developer and you're coming out with a beta or whatever version it might be, you give that disclaimer saying, "Hey, we've tested it. We're doing our best. We're developing it. Um, you know, expects there to be bugs. You know, I've seen that message plenty of times. Like you should expect this to break if you want to use the beta version." Um, so I mean, yeah, it's kind of everybody's fault there at that same time. You know, if uh if you're using kind of all of these experimental versions of software at once, something's going to run into another piece of software.
Mm-hmm.
They should put disclaimers like they do on pharmaceutical commercials.
Right.
This may blue screen your computer, cause an issue with your keyboard, or an inability to save data with your hard drive.
May cause drowsiness, insomnia, sleep apnea, overweight, underweight,
Spontaneous combustion.
and or death. I mean,
May cause an overwhelming desire to smash your monitor with your fist.
yeah, there you go.
You're reminding me of my joys for the weekend, spending 2 hours trying to figure out why an op amp wasn't working, just to find out that the oscope and the function generator I was using both didn't work.
Oh. You didn't
That's fun.
calibrate before you started, did you?
No, I still couldn't get the equipment to work. I don't know what. I think there was also some noise from the room that was interfering with my signal. I couldn't figure it out. Went to a different lab. Everything worked just fine. So that was the fun that I had. But it's that same thing. It's like, you have an issue, say, hey, this is going on, and Microsoft comes by and says, I don't know what you're talking about. We can't reproduce it. There's just so many variables in there. But this one is strange to me because it was something that was a lot of people were able to reproduce the issue. Um, which it kind of makes you want to put the blame back on those developers, saying, okay, well, if this is a widespread issue and you couldn't figure that out until now that it's a beta version, I mean, it seems like there should have been a little bit more of a precaution put in there or some more testing. I'm not sure. I don't know the specifics, so it's hard to say, you know, who cut the corner.
I think it's an edge case where a lot of people got a hold of some pre-release, either Asus BIOS or, SSD BIOS or, who knows? Who knows? But I mean, whenever you're testing something, you always update everything to the latest versions, right?
Well, latest stable, I do. I used to be that way where I was like, yeah, give me the latest and greatest, give me the beta, I want to
E-
be
Every
on.
Linux how-to I've ever read, the first thing they start out with is, with your package manager, whatever it is update what your current system is, run the upgrades that need to be run for that day. Just make sure it's the latest stable for all the different dependencies and packages and things that you have. And then start the process to install this software or follow this little how-to, this recipe guide to make this whatever it is you're trying to make work on your system. That's always the first thing. Update that I've
Mhm.
always.
And if somebody marks it as the stable release, but it's still the beta,
Shame on
or
them.
worse yet, it's not run through Microsoft's certification program, can't really argue that one.
um Shoot, it just escaped me out of thought. Uh that's right. From a Some people might bring up the question, well then why even bother updating to a beta, As a user, what's the advantage of upgrading to a beta rather than staying on just the most stable version? Because I can say from a developer's perspective, a developer, like, yeah, I'd love for you to try out the beta. And, if you let me collect some, some data from your system, then I can catch those edge cases and I can fix my software. Now, knowing that, I'm still going to opt out of all of the tracking stuff myself. But if I'm in a good mood and when my computer bricks itself, maybe I'll submit a ticket to your system and say, "Hey, by the way, yeah, it doesn't work. Here's what went wrong." So, I mean, I see that from a developer's perspective. That's super useful to release these betas. But from a user, should I always stay on the most stable version, or is there ever really a good advantage for me to get onto a beta other than being on the latest and greatest? Just because.
I think it comes
I
down to what you're using your system for and how much you value what's on that system. Like if it's a pretty important system and you value what's on it, I'd be sticking with the stable, tried and tested, versions of the software. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't still things that are going to slip through. It's just going to be less likely, right?
Right.
The other
well,
thing
and
I've
if
always seen is there's also software that says, like, because it's a beta, it says don't use this on production systems. Like if it's in your lab and you're just doing it for testing and having fun and playing with the features or anything, great, knock yourself out. But don't use it on a production system. And people probably still will because maybe there's a new feature and they absolutely have to have that feature running on the production system. Well, then it's up to them. It's on them to deal with any issues that come up.
so here's one for you. Real world case. Jackson, you've used LabVIEW, right?
LabVIEW. No, what's it for?
Ooh, that's some cool software. It's scientific instrumentation in a visual form.
Isn't it hooked
Think
up
of
to
it like
like
Visual
different?
C, but on steroids. Like, so you can use it very quickly. Scientists who don't know how to code can use this to write code and do things. More like Lego NXT, if you ever use that stuff. The block logic.
Sure.
We back in high school, me and a couple buddies, we were in our tech lab and we were fascinated with laser shows. These laser shows, like you see at planetariums, we wanted to make our own. So we did from scratch. And I mean that from scratch. We took now we did get the scanner, the device that moves the mirror up and down and makes the thing. We could have made our own, but we inherited one from a planetarium nearby that had upgraded their system and they just needed to get rid of it.
Nice.
They didn't need to, but it went to a school. We put it to use. The museum fulfilled, or the planetarium fulfilled their education mission by giving it to us because, oh my goodness, we took it to the next level. So think of it like oscilloscope, like what you've got, where you can see patterns, the X and Y overlaid on each other. So you get that little hoop dancing and warping back and forth, or that's cool. If you ever played music into that, you could see the patterns. If you put X and Y as left and right, you get some interesting patterns if you get some true stereophonic music. So our laser show was based on that. Okay, so there's speakers. How do you drive speakers? You need a sound card. So back in high school, sound cards were kind of brand new. You know, Star Trek: The Next Generation was just hitting the TV. Here, I'm dating myself here. Star Trek was showing, "Hey, play me some Mozart, play some Beethoven, play me some, whatever kind of music," and the computer would pick some music and play it. That was a novel idea, and no computer of the day could actually do that, let alone play music in the first place. Jackson, audio CDs, the CD-ROM for your computer had a special audio cord that went from it to the sound card, so it could play audio CDs or digital CDs. And if you didn't have that cable, you could not play your audio CD in your CD-ROM on your computer.
Hmm.
So we're getting back in time here. We worked with LabVIEW. They didn't have a sound module. We worked with them to develop the sound module. So we got a beta release of the sound module for our production system because they were solving our problem collaboratively with us, and we rolled that in, and it was glorious because after that, we built a program to scan, we would overlay EPS files on the inside of the thing, and we tied different points for the laser show for the laser to go hit. It drove it perfect on an oscilloscope, but when we put in the little speaker apparatus, played like garbage. Just a bunch of circles looped together into each other.
Yeah.
And so we got to learn, velocities and momentum and how speakers aren't 100% responsive. So it was a fantastic experience on how a company released a software patch and actually built a module for us. And then they rolled it out for everybody based on our feedback and experience with it.
Yeah,
So
I think those use cases are super cool.
it was
Or
great.
I know sometimes like I can't remember exactly what it was, but I know I was using some piece of software and it was just like, man, I just need these features. And I don't even remember if I submitted a ticket, but I think it was a common thing. Everyone's like, man, we really need these features. And they did release a beta and they're like, okay, we've implemented these features, but we don't know what's gonna break it. So those times are uh really useful to be using a beta version, but you do have to just know that you're on a you're risking it. So I guess I would come away with that like, don't use a beta unless you really know what you're getting for it and you need it.
That's true. I mean, you do it for a reason
Yeah.
or use the stable version. But I mean, I don't know the circumstance. All I know is there's still some finger pointing saying, no, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. We'll never know the truth. There was one thing I've learned for absolute certainty. News and reporting agencies will never tell you the truth. They'll tell you their perspective of somebody's answer to a question. So test and verify.
too bad.
Don't let your scientific method be dictated by some random guy on YouTube.
Right.
It's too bad the news is no longer news. It's just a string
So
of opinions. But
so
anyway,
let's
go ahead.
jump into the last piece. It's kind of been a thread through most of this. And, we're getting close to the bottom of the hour here, guys. Privacy versus anonymity. Are they the same? Are they antithetical to each other? So let's take Signal. I send a message from me to my attorney. I'm talking to my attorney about things that should be only between me and my attorney, or my doctor, talking to him about I don't know, length of my beard. I don't know. Anything. All that matters is it's between me and my attorney, or me and my lawyer, which I consult both when I'm talking about the length of my beard.
So here's the thing, is that privacy has to do with the content. Anonymity has to do with who you are, like attaching that content to you, right? One thing, so here's the thing I've noticed on Facebook. I belong to a couple of community pages, and Facebook, oh, I can't remember how long ago they implemented this, but they made it possible that if you're in a group that you have the ability to post anonymously. And in these community pages, it gives people kind of a way that, one, they can protect their identity so that they don't get in trouble with their job for saying something about something that they know something about, but they can't make an official statement. Let's put it that way. Or because they have a question, but they don't, other people who know who they are, they don't want people knowing that it's them asking that question or inquiring about a certain topic, right? So, so I see the content, I see, oh, they're asking about, where's a good place to go get my beard trimmed, or something like that. I know that there's somebody out there dealing with an issue of needing their beard trimmed, but I don't know who it is. Whereas privacy is that I see a lot of people on Facebook that I know, I can see their recommendation to be friends with them because maybe somehow Facebook has figured out like, oh, hey, you went to the same high school together, or you live in the same community or something like that. Maybe you know this person, you should be friends with them. Well, I can click on that profile picture and I can only see what they've allowed to share, which is a good way to do Facebook. Don't make your whole profile public, worldly public. That's just not good.
Mike, how am I going to get all the likes I want?
Well, make a different profile for that.
With a bot farm, like everybody else.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Come on, Jackson, get with it. Let's go.
You're right.
All right. But I can go and I can see that person's profile picture, and maybe they've chosen to reveal just one or two details about them so I can decide, like, do I really know that person? But otherwise, like all their posts, their likes, their dislikes, all their connections with other people, I can't see that until we've worked out an arrangement to accept each other's friend requests and we become actually connected through Facebook, right? And then I can see more of that private information. So that's kind of how I see privacy versus anonymity. There's a lot of things that are private that I would consider private that people have shared anonymously.
Yeah.
And that if somebody was paying attention and looked at the details, and maybe if they did some engineering, they could actually figure out who that person is if they did their detective work.
What do you think, Jackson?
Well, here's a question. Do you think there's ever a good reason to have privacy and anonymity together?
Whistleblowers?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who has the fear of reprisal from a nation state? somebody who's in a protected class in an unprotected area. You know, let's go extreme on this. You go to like a North Korea. Yeah, I'd want to be anonymous and private. Sometimes your worldviews can't be expressed safely.
Yeah. Well, then, yeah, I think it should be anyone and everyone's goal on the internet to be able to achieve the right level of both of those when and where they want it. And so I feel like the biggest argument that everyone has with companies in the last, 5, 10 years is that they don't offer those as options. They're not giving the proper
Yeah.
amount of anonymity or privacy that people want and need.
I think you've hit that. We talk about privacy statements when we go to a website. It's always here's our privacy statement. Here's how we use your data, this and this and that. But you notice that it's never called an anonymity statement. And we've talked about this before. We've talked about the fact that there are resources out there that you can get tracked cell phone data. Now it's anonymized, where it says, I know that there's a cell phone. I don't know whose cell phone per se, but I know that it came into this area and it went to these different locations within this geographical area. And if you track that enough times, you can build a profile out of that, right?
So you're saying that it's possible to de-anonymize and deprivatize the data,
It's possible with enough data
and it's not the
given.
same thing. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
It's two separate operations. Because
Yeah. But
yeah,
here's the thing. If my cell phone's being tracked and they see that it always goes to the same residential location in town at the end of the day and is there for 8 to 10 hours and then it leaves again, that means there's a pretty good chance that's where that person lives. And I can
so it's
put an address
anonymous,
to that.
but it's not private.
Right. But there are public records out there that tie that address to a name. So now I've taken all the
Well
pieces and I can put them together. Is it then still private and anonymous?
well, I hate to say it, but we're gonna have to cut this conversation here, guys. But I wanna carry this conversation on as just a continuing piece in our podcast. Anonymity and privacy, and how do we protect both? When should we, and when should we avoid protecting that? But yeah, I really enjoy this conversation. For those that are tuning in, please like and subscribe. We'd love to hear your comments below because you're helping us carry this conversation forwards. More perspective is good perspective. But until next time, I'm John.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jackson.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Back to the future. Here we go.